Chicago rain out with thunderstorms likely on and off throughout the day. Mild temps the rest of the week, and spring arrives on Sunday. Brian Leonard with your on point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
Ooh, I like when you press that one.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornbluth, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on sportstalksc.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Busy Monday night after just a wild weekend, but a wilder day. Welcome into Sports Talk. Phil Kornbluth, Pat Daniel here in Columbia. Chris Bergen from the Bergen Palace in Sardis. And our phone number, 888-898-2525. That's the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. And we're going to take as many phone calls as we can get to tonight on the firing of Frank Martin as the men's basketball coach at South Carolina. When that news came out officially from USC this morning, that changed the tenor of everything today because, let's face it, the hiring and firing of coaches is a big deal around here. And the Frank Martin situation is one that has been controversial over the past few years. We'll share some thoughts on it here in just a moment and some detail on it here in just a moment. But we want to take your phone calls. 888-898-2525 is how you can reach us. Our new poll question of the week. We had a poll question up last night about what South Carolina should do. And, of course, that poll question became null and void about 10:30 this morning. No, I'm sorry. It was early this afternoon, when South Carolina put out its release. And so the new poll question that you can get to on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC and on our website, sportstalksc.com, the new poll question is, how do you feel about this decision by South Carolina, by Ray Tanner, to make this move and by firing Frank Martin after 10 seasons as the basketball coach at South Carolina? 69.3%, and we put this up just a little while ago, so 88 votes are in. 69.3% agree, 30.7% disagree. So, Chris, it's always a surreal day when there's a firing of a longtime coach. You know, some coaches come and go, and you hardly get to know them. They're there 3 years, 4 years. Martin was at South Carolina 10 years, plenty of time to build a program, to put his name, his face, his image, his likeness, his fingerprints all over the basketball scene at South Carolina, and now it's over.
Third longest tenured head coach in USC men's basketball history. So you're right, Phil. And you and I talked this morning, and we were plotting out things that we wanted to get into tonight. And obviously, one of the things we were going to touch on is South Carolina baseball, and an amazing weekend for them, knocking off Texas. And looks like maybe they turned the corner this past week. Who knows? And then about 1 o'clock this afternoon, when we got back in touch with each other, that totally went out of the water. So because this is clearly the biggest story of the day, and kind of surprised. I really am. I'm kind of surprised that South Carolina made the move. But, Phil, I'm curious as to how much. Clearly, it's obvious that one of the things that worked against Frank Martin is his postseason, not just record, but postseason appearances. Only going to the NCAA tournament once and the NIT once. That was just not going to be good enough if that did not continue. And over a 10-year time frame, even though Frank kind of laid out the reasons why, I think Ray Tanner and the board said, you know what, now's the time to make a change. But I'm also interested, and I don't know that we'll ever get an answer on this, but how much did peer pressure within the SEC and what went on this weekend? You want to talk about pink slips being handed out across the landscape of the conference. LSU finally has to get rid of Will Wade in hopes that the NCAA believes that may be enough to keep them from who knows how harsh of penalties they're going to get since he won't coach in the NCAA tournament. Then we find out Mike White leaves Florida to take the vacant Georgia job. So the Florida job is now open. The LSU job is open. And it appears the Mississippi State job will be open as soon as Ben Howland and the Bulldogs get done with the NIT. So I wonder, as much as it could have been, may have been, possibly should have been time for Frank Martin to go at South Carolina, I wonder if it got sped up a little bit because of the concerns that Ray Tanner and USC might have. That, good grief, if we don't get a new coach in here right now, we may not be able to get one because of everything else and all the movement going on in our league.
All right, let me share with you what I know and then opinion as well, okay? So just to turn the clock back approximately a year, we reported about a year ago, right about this time, right after the SEC tournament, that South Carolina was in the process of letting Frank Martin go as basketball coach. Back then, that Ray Tanner wanted to make a change with the basketball coaching position on the men's side at South Carolina. And that story played out for several weeks, ultimately reaching the point where they did not make the change last year. In fact, they extended his contract a couple of years, but they changed up the buyout to make it softer on them. So just to rehash that for a moment and what happened there and why it went the way it did, my information then and now was Ray Tanner wanted to make the change. He consulted with board members at South Carolina and got them in the mix with it. And that might have been, obviously was a mistake, because board members started flapping their jaws and, leaking the information out that a change was imminent. And also Ray Tanner wanted to give Martin a chance to find another job and didn't want to pull the trigger so quickly. Give him a chance to find another job so he could maybe walk away without being scarred by being fired at South Carolina. And so there was a delay in the whole process while that was playing out. And then you had, during that time, of course, players, after finding out through the various leaks that this was happening, players coming out in support of Frank Martin. You had a certain movement going on, I guess some on social media. Then you had politicians getting involved, in particular one sitting senator and one former senator who were close friends with Frank Martin. You had the former mayor of Columbia, who's close friends with him, all getting involved and trying to use their political clout. And you had the angst with board members against Bob Caslin, the current president at that time, as well as politicians in the state legislature who hated Bob Caslin and like nothing more than not to give him what they wanted or what he wanted. And basically, if you go back and remember the hearing that he sat in front of, Darrell Jackson, the state senator, basically threatened blackmail against Caslin if he fired another coach by threatening to withhold funds for a medical school that he wanted at the USC campus. So all this was going on, and it forced their hand. It forced board members to those who wanted to make a change, and Ray Tanner, who doesn't have to answer to the board. He answers to the president. All right. He doesn't have to answer to the board, but the pressure became so great that they had to nix that and go another year. So the hope was, of course, that he would have a great year. I say the hope. This is me talking. I think, just generally speaking, the hope was that he'd have a great year and everything would be fine, and South Carolina would make the NCAA tournament and have another magical run, and you could then maybe redo a contract and fix everything up and make it smell good. And ordinarily, you would think, and as an athletic director, that a coach who went from 6 wins to 18 wins, even though one was against a Division II team, and finished tied for 5th in your league, and made that drastic improvement from one year to the next, that would be a good enough turnaround to where you say, okay, things are moving in the right direction. That's a positive season, and things look good. But I think, my opinion, that Ray Tanner had his mind made up a couple of weeks ago about what he was going to do. And as a matter of fact, I spoke briefly with Ray at the tournament on Thursday, not a sit-down conversation, just hey, how you doing, walking past him, cutting up, making snide remarks at one another, which we tend to do. And he seemed like he didn't have a care in the world. He seemed like, he was jovial and smiling and carefree. Like there wasn't a heavy decision weighing on him, which kind of falls in line with what I was told today, that this thing was decided upon a couple of weeks ago. And then you have a national reporter, Matt Norlander, today, who said interviews had already been going on at South Carolina. So this thing's apparently been in the works, in his mind at least. And the other thing that Tanner has done this time, so I'm told, he did not consult with the board except for the chairman. And he, swore the chairman to absolute secrecy. There was no widespread conversation with board members. This was all done by Ray Tanner. And, of course, having Harris Pastides in as the president right now, and they, of course, have been close for a lot of years, that, too, was a positive on his behalf in making this move. So now is the time to do it. Everything lined up in his mind, the proper way to do this. And he did it. That's why there was no until who was it that John Rothstein, I think, who's I think close with Frank Martin, who probably got a tip from Frank Martin or Martin's agent that this was happening. He put the news out on Twitter, and then about 20 minutes later, USC put out the official release. That's how these things work in the coaching world. You got your national guy that you leak your information to. But prior to that, as far as I know, there was no leak, no trickle of information coming from South Carolina, coming from the board, coming from Ray Tanner, because the board didn't know until until the 12th hour and 11:59. And that's a credit to Ray Tanner for holding it together and following through on what he originally wanted to do, this time without interference. So that gets us to where we are now, and where does he go from here? From what I've been told, originally looking at about 10 days to 2 weeks. Now, that was before some other jobs opened up. We've had LSU open up. We've had Florida open up. As you mentioned, I think Mississippi State looks like it's going to open up. So more jobs are starting to open up, both around the SEC and nationally. Is that going to complicate some things here? I mean, obviously, if there's competition for the same hot names, that can complicate things. So as far as any really strong leads or anything like that, I don't have any personally. I see John Whittle from the Big Spur, who I trust and has great contacts. He posted some names this afternoon on his website. One name that seems to be making the circles is the coach at Chattanooga,
Lamont Paris.
Yeah, that's
and I think that might be a good hire for them. I really do. This is a guy who's basically coached at every level. He's been successful as an assistant coach, and he has slowly turned that Chattanooga program around. And he's got a team that may win a game or two in the NCAA tournament. I think he will be a hot name. Whether or not South Carolina goes after him, I don't know. But I wanted to go back to something you said, that this may have been in the works for a couple of weeks. And Phil, I'm looking back through the schedule and trying to pinpoint maybe when Ray Tanner said this is enough. How much do you believe that blowout at home versus Tennessee on national television may have sort of sealed Frank Martin's fate back on February 5th?
It's hard to pinpoint a date. I mean, this might have been in Tanner's mind the whole season.
Sure.
His mind may have been made up the whole time. I can't say. I'm just guessing here. But that would certainly have been a case where it wasn't pretty for South Carolina at home on national television. But then South Carolina kind of revived itself a little bit and put a little winning streak together, but then finished poorly,
Yeah.
So exactly when, I don't know. I'm just sort of putting the pieces together here. So they've written about Matt McMahon, who's at Murray State, who's friends with Shane Beamer, Cleveland State coach Dennis Gates, Liberty coach Richie McKay. They've thrown out Pat Kelsey's name at Charleston, Wes Miller at Cincinnati, Bobby Hurley. Again, that name was mentioned last time or last year, Arizona State. Dustin Kearns from Appalachian State, who has ties to the state of South Carolina. These are some of the names being thrown out there. Bob Ritchie from Furman, be another name being thrown out there. So we'll see where it goes. Now, I don't know anything. Okay, I'm seeing that right up front. I don't know anything, but I personally, if I were Ray Tanner, I mean, I would take a look at Greg Marshall. I would just I would dip my toes into that water just a little bit to see where Greg Greg is, where his head is after a year out of coaching. Has he regained his reputation in some ways by being out for a year? You know, it ended ugly for him at Wichita. Ended ugly, and he was not good. He was not good there at the end. You know, maybe he's learned some things from that. Maybe he's changed a little bit. I don't think there was anything there like NCAA wise, like violations. It was more treatment of players and things of that nature, as I recall. But, you know, he has property. He has a house down at Pawleys Island, and he doesn't live there. He lives somewhere else. He has a vacation house there. But, you know, he's from Greenwood. I think the South Carolina job has been one that he would always take a look at. And I don't think anybody can question his coaching ability and his ability to bring in players that win for him. And good players, you know. I mean, at Wichita State, he had some really good players.
At Winthrop, he did as well. And Phil, this is a guy who take out some of the seedy side of things surrounding Greg Marshall, and that would be something that Ray Tanner is going to have to sift through and be ready to handle questions about it. I mean, if there are people who complain that Frank Martin yells at his players, here's a guy who has been accused of abusing his players. But you take that out of the mix, and all of his coaching tenure, and that includes at Winthrop, he's only missed the postseason 3 times. I mean, the guy can coach. There's no question about it. Greg Marshall is a coach. Now, whether or not the motivating side of the coin is something you want to deal with is anybody's guess.
Yeah. Looking at a little story here on the Big Spur, one of their guys, I don't know who this is, one of their guys touched base with G.G. Jackson. I actually was on the phone with his dad this afternoon, and I'm hoping to talk to him again, Greg Jackson, but they had to run to an appointment, so I didn't get a chance to go into detail. But there's a quote here from G.G. Jackson. This definitely has an effect because he recruited me as a coach and is close with my family. He said he thinks things will stay the same as far as his decision-making process. Now he's talking about April, which kind of falls in line with what his dad has told us. Remember when the dad told us last week they're not rushing it. The kid had said like 2 or 3 weeks. Dad said no, it'd take a little bit longer than that. So here's some more names that the Big Spur has posted. John Whittle has posted on their Hot Board 1.0. Mike Boynton, Dennis Gates, Cleveland State, Richie McKay at Liberty, Mac McMahon at Murray State, Sean Miller from Arizona. I don't know how you can touch Sean Miller.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure you want to go down the Murray State road again after the debacle that was Steve Newton several years ago. So I think you could probably eliminate him as well.
But then again, a different person.
No doubt.
Just because you coach at Murray State doesn't mean, you're going to.
And they're great. I mean, they've won 30 games this year. So, I mean, you're talking about a really, really good team and a pretty good coach.
Place where they have the quarterback that threw for like 10,000 yards or something. Their offense on their football team's like crazy, if I'm thinking of the right place. Lamont Paris from Chattanooga, who I hear great things about. Let's see here. Bob Ritchie, mentioned him. Ohio coach Jeff Bowles. They've mentioned B.J. Mackey. I don't see that really happening. I mean, I don't see – well, of course, he hired Shane Beamer, who's never been a head coach. Would he do the same thing for basketball? I mean, B.J. would be a hell of a popular pick because of who he is. Is he ready? Colorado State coach Nico Medved would be a great one to look at. I mean, he did a great job at Furman. He's done a great job at Colorado State.
And just signed a big contract extension with Colorado State. So you'd have to navigate that side of the coin with him.
Well, the thing about Marshall is there's no buyout involved. You don't have to pay anybody else for his buyout. So I'm just throwing that name out there as one of my – here's the opportunity. If he were to check the boxes, if he were to check the boxes of kind of being reincarnated, so to speak, as a basketball coach, and maybe you could be the place to give him that opportunity. It'd be a great story. Be a great story if you hired him and he came back a different guy and still won at a high level like he did at Wichita State, Pat.
If you're going to throw B.J. Mackey's name out there, what about Melvin Watson? I know he hasn't coached on the college level yet, but he's done pretty well at South Point, and he would also move the needle a little bit. And then if you're going to mention Greg Marshall, what about Rick Pitino? He's up at Iona. Is he just
I-
too toxic? You think?
Well, I don't think you hire. First of all, how many years is he going to coach? Number two, don't go down the road of getting a guy that's already made his fame. You know, hire somebody who's going to be here. Look, you got 10 years out of Frank Martin. That's a good run. Okay. And I think Frank Martin, before he leaves, he should be applauded for what he did with the South Carolina program, in that he did it his way. He did it cleanly, and he took them someplace they'd never been before. He just didn't get to the tournament nearly enough. Okay. And I'm not going to give him a pass on that, because in today's college basketball world, you are judged by how many times you get to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You can have all the 18 and 19 win seasons you want, and fifth and sixth place finishes in your league and all that. If you're not getting to the tournament, then you're not earning your keep in today's college basketball world. Don't blame us. That's the world you built. When I say you, I mean the coaches and the ADs, and that's the world they've built.
And
That's
the
what you're
fans
judged
too,
by.
Phil. I mean, no one pays attention to college basketball until this. I shouldn't say no one, but the majority of fans don't tune in until March, because the tournament has become such a behemoth. CBS has helped this, but there's so much interest in importance on making the tournament. The regular season is as meaningless as any regular season in all of college sports. And so we have all done this to ourselves. We have put it to a situation where it's not like the college football playoff. If you don't make it every year to the college football playoff, I don't think you're going to lose your job in college football. You're going to lose your job, as Frank Martin and USC just proved today, if you don't make the NCAA tournament more than one time in 10 years, because that's all the majority of fans care about.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, so that is where we stand there. That's the big story of the day. That's the elephant in the room. Another big story that concerns our state, well, there are two. You've got news coming out from the Braves that they have acquired Matt Olson from the Oakland A's to play first base. Pretty much, apparently, meaning that Freddie Freeman is gone, probably to the Dodgers, because it looks like the Yankees are going to re-sign Anthony Rizzo. Looks like they had a lot of interest in Olson too. Looks like they may re-sign Anthony Rizzo to be their first baseman, which doesn't make me sad. I think Anthony Rizzo, left-handed bat, Yankee Stadium, great glove. I'm happy with that as a Yankee fan. The other news was reported this morning is that the Panthers and the Saints look like the two places that are going to interview Deshaun Watson here in the next 24, 48 hours and get heavily involved in that situation. So we got all that going on, plus South Carolina baseball took 2 out of 3 from Texas. Who saw that coming? The Gamecocks beat the number 1 team in the country. The USC men's tennis team beat the number 1 team in the country the other day in Tennessee, at Tennessee, breaking a 30-game home match winning streak for Tennessee. Did you see how they won the match, Chris?
Yeah, it was on a something about an argument on an out-of-bounds play.
Never heard of this before. Didn't know this was the case in any tennis or college tennis, but it was a tiebreaker in the deciding match. And the player for Tennessee, a kid named Diaz, he won the first point. And then the South Carolina player, Thomason, he won the second point. No. I'm sorry. He was serving on the second point, and Diaz called it out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a match referee at these, even though the players are the referees themselves, but there's a match referee that oversees that. Well, he overruled Diaz, and that was the 4th overrule. And according to the rules, if you're overruled 4 times, it costs you a game in the match. And thus, that game, that tiebreaker, went to the Gamecock, and they beat Tennessee, the number 1 team in the country. Then they went and lost at Georgia, 4-3. But Georgia's very good. South Carolina men's tennis is very, very good. Men's tennis is very, very good. So we got a lot on our plate, and we're going to get to your phone calls. We wanted to set the table here in the first 25 minutes. I think we've done that. We're going to come back from the break, open up the phone lines, and hear what's your reaction to today's news here in South Carolina that Frank Martin is out as the South Carolina men's basketball coach. Do you think that Ray Tanner would have any conversation with Dawn Staley?
I think you have to have a conversation with her. Whether or not it's for the job itself is another story, but I think she would be a great resource. You go to her and say, all right, Dawn, you can be our search firm. Who do you think would like this job? And see if she actually says, well, I would be interested in interviewing for it. But you have to talk with her. She's the most visible face in the face of the athletic department right now.
Do you weaken the best program on campus to try and strengthen another at
Great
the
question.
expense of that one, All right, we got all that to talk about when we come back from the break.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Not as chilly as we've had the last couple of evenings. Clouds roll in. We'll have a low of 42. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 72 and a slight 20% chance of an afternoon shower. Wednesday looks like a rain out with thunderstorms likely on and off throughout the day. Mild temps the rest of the week, and spring arrives on Sunday. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
When you think about spring, good stuff springs to mind. Like spring break.
Woohoo!
A friend springing for drinks.
Thanks, dude.
A spring in your step. Spring fever.
Oh, behave.
And best of all, spring water dough pizza from the Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers.
Yeah, baby.
Experience the taste of spring with our amazing hand-tossed pies, spring fresh salads, and over 100 beers from around the world. Enjoy spring at the Mellow Mushroom in the Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. Fox News says reporter Benjamin Hall was injured while reporting outside of Kiev and has been hospitalized. Fox News Media CEO Suzanne Scott told employees in a message that Hall was wounded on Monday. She said she had few other details. Hall is a Washington-based correspondent who covers the U.S. State Department. He's worked for Fox News since 2015. Also Monday, the live main evening news program on Russia's state television was briefly interrupted by a person who walked into the studio holding a poster against the war in Ukraine. The OVD Info website that monitors political arrests identified the woman who interrupted the broadcast on Channel 1 as Marina Ovsyannikova. The website says Ovsyannikova was detained and taken into police custody. More details at srnnews.com.
We all want to eat healthy, but have you ever read the ingredients list off of your favorite snack? Between the hard-to-pronounce ingredients and man-made additives, it's difficult to find anything made from real, natural ingredients. Even some of my favorite organic snacks have ingredients I haven't heard of. At Balance of Nature, we know the value of real nutrition that can only be found in real food. That's why the only things you'll find on our ingredients list are real whole fruits and vegetables. No additives, fillers, or artificial ingredients of any kind. Balance of Nature is the best whole fruit and vegetable product on the market, delivering your body everything it needs to function at its very best. Eat better and feel better. Start your journey to better health. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com to get free shipping. And don't forget to get 35% off your first preferred order by using discount code SALEM.
Oh, good, you're home. I need your help.
Doing what?
Replacing our old light bulbs with these new energy-efficient LEDs.
Where did you get these?
Dominion Energy. I ordered direct from their online store. LEDs for every room, all at huge discounts.
Oh, really?
Yes, really. And my 15-bulb order got us free shipping.
Sounds too good to be true.
See for yourself at DominionEnergySC.com.
Where?
DominionEnergySC.com.
Certain restrictions apply.
If you're like me, you're sick and tired of seeing these old TV stars, game show hosts, these athletes telling you how to save money on your Medicare and on your health insurance. These national toll-free numbers are overwhelming us. It's not that people don't need the service. They need good local customer service, not big box toll-free numbers. See, I work directly with Tim Hanberry right here at Medicare Blueprint in the Midlands. When it comes to my family, I want the best family plan. I'm not even on Medicare, but my mom is. So here's what I do want. Someone local to serve as my advisor on the plans and choices that I have, and someone to help mom with her Medicare. I want someone to help me pick the right plan, save me as much money as possible by knowing all the rules of the game. Medicare Blueprint starts the process with you. They will see it through. They answer all your questions. They call you back. It's the same folks helping you start to finish. Tim and his team are independent. They fight for you, not the insurance company. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call them 708-7398.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
Since 2002. More than $999 million in lottery proceeds have been used to support K through 12 programs in South Carolina. Learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at seeducationlottery.com/education wins. Playing for fun is a win for education. Let's go to Keith in Camden. We get things rolling on the phone lines on this very busy Monday. Keith, welcome to Sports Talk. Good to have you with us.
I'm doing great. How you doing, Phil?
We're great. Good to have you.
Yeah, I listen to y'all every evening. It's my what I call sanity time.
Good.
And we've talked a good bit. I don't think anybody would say that they're happy with this year. But as I've expressed to y'all before, be careful what you wish for because of what you can get. And I'll go back to last year. And this is with all due respect to Ray Tanner, great man, great baseball coach, but he made that bed and created that mess. And I give him credit. He reacted pretty quick, but at the end of the day, let's see where this ends. Letting someone go is one thing, but not having a plan is another. And we've seen that repeatedly throughout Mr. Tanner's history here.
Well, let's don't think out loud that he doesn't have a plan. We don't know. I would think that he has a plan.
Well,
I think that he is a one-man, just like with football. I think he's a one-man committee handling this, and everything's going to run through him.
Yeah.
And I got to believe, like I said at the outset, that this, I believe, has been in the works for, in his mind at least, been in the works for a little while. Because they moved quickly after the season. I mean, they waited until after so I'm sure they didn't want to take away anything from the Women's Day yesterday, and they wanted to wait to see if the NIT came through. But my feeling is that even an NIT bid might not have changed anything in this particular situation. I think the handwriting, like I said, this was going to be done last year. It got sidetracked. So, barring just a miracle year this year and a major step forward, it was going to happen. And I think he has in his mind at least the people he would like to talk to and see who he might be able to bring in.
Well, I don't disagree with you at all. And I think, a year after Beamer, we're optimistic. But, his track record to this point is not great. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say that, yeah, he has a plan. But last year, he didn't need to go through all those people and laying it out on the table for support. He's the AD. He goes to the president. He does it.
Yeah. He made a mistake. He made a mistake.
Well, so hopefully he learns from that mistake. And, we all make mistakes and we have to deal with them. And hopefully we move on and learn. But, the verdict's still out, in my opinion.
Anybody else out there like Greg Marshall? You like the idea of Greg Marshall?
Well, I mean, let me ask you this: if everybody's upset about, we live in a world today where we want our kids, not me, most people, we got to pamper them. that's not the style of the coach we have now, nor is that the style of Marshall. So I don't have a problem with it.
525 and 204. 525
Right.
and 204.
Absolutely.
He has been in 25 NCAA tournament games, 11 and 14, 8 and 1 in the NIT, Final Four in 2013, 7 Big South tournaments. I'm just looking at his Wikipedia here, which you take as a grain of salt with Wikipedia. But I mean,
pretty accurate with him, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at his Wichita State record. He won 73% of his games at Wichita State. His last 7 years. No, go back. Good gracious. He won 30-plus games 3 years in a row, then 26, then 31. His last 3 teams won 25, 22, and 23. And he didn't get to finish things there with the last team. And, of course, he's got this thing here with the abuse investigation and his resignation back in November of 2020 after multiple allegations of verbal and physical abuse spanning years. Now, I don't know. I mean, it's the allegations, some of which were corroborated by several players, included punching a player during a practice, choking an assistant coach. Other allegations include telling a Native American player to get back on his horse and making Indian howling noises. This has all been reported. You know, he said he responded to the allegations. I simply state unequivocally that I have never physically struck a player or colleague. Allegations claiming otherwise are false. That was his statement to the Wichita Eagle. So, I mean, is there some baggage
He's never
there?
been in trouble.
Yeah, but no,
he's never been into trouble with the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Tanner earns his keep. Has the man changed? We're all should be given that opportunity, but that's their call.
Yep.
I mean, that's what they're there for.
If you ask me right now, of the best coach, if you're looking for the best coach available that you can get,
it's him.
He's the best coach available that you can get.
He's it.
Yeah.
Also, guys, isn't it reasonable to assume that it takes a certain type of player to play for a coach, such as a Frank Martin, a Greg Marshall, that's going to be in your face? They're going to be you have to have thick skin. You're going to get yelled at a lot. You're going to get chastised. That already exists here. So you already have that same type of player that's used to playing under a hard-nosed coach. Wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that bringing in a guy like Greg Marshall would be an easier transition than bringing in somebody that's a different style of coach?
Well, but you wonder how many of the people are going to be here. Is the roster going to just, go their separate ways? Is Devin Carter going to jump? Who's going to stay and who's going to leave? You get a lot of that, a lot of transfer out during a coaching change, especially with the 1 year free pass you get.
Right, but that's kind of where I'm going. If you hire a coach similar, would that not at least be reasonable to assume be easier to convince those players to stay
if
and
those
not
players
leave?
like that style?
Sure, of course, right.
Which most of them, again, and Keith, thank you for your phone call. I mean, those of us on the outside, we watch Frank Martin work and scream at players and all that and cringe, yet the players basically have sworn by him. Even the ones who've left have all said good things about him, I think. He's never put his hands on anybody that we know of. Nothing like that. And the players who go through his routine and all that, they understand him. I think they turn a deaf ear to him on the bench.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. The bark this is true. I think in Martin's case, it's truly one of those cases where the bark is worse than the bite. He might look like a bulldog and yell at you like a bulldog, but they say in the locker room and, away from it, always a sweetheart. So,
well, and Phil, the easiest
complex man.
And I will give advice to any athlete who plays under a coach like that. The easiest response is listen what he says, say yes, sir, and go sit down.
Yeah.
Because you don't escalate the situation. You take his coaching and you go sit down.
Let's continue with the phones. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. And thank you for your phone call, Keith. We go to Delvin in Fountain Inn. Delvin, welcome into Sports Talk. Good to have you with us.
That's my bad, Corn. He just hung up right as right as I was trying to bring you in. Delvin, if you want to give us a call back, please do so.
Okay.
But now up next with us is Andy from right here in Columbia.
All right, Andy, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Good evening, Phil.
Yes, sir.
I hope you're doing well there.
Doing
Chris,
fine.
I hope everything's going well in Florence area.
It is. Thank you, sir.
Well, first off, Frank Martin never, I don't believe, has ever yelled at his players in a racial type of epithet. So, in my conclusion, Marshall doesn't need to be here. We don't need anybody who is. Why don't you talk to the player here, Stevens, who is no longer with the team, but he did play at Wichita State 2 years ago.
That's true. Yeah,
and I'm sure he can give you plenty of background.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
On Coach Marshall and how he is and how he compares with Coach Martin's style of coaching. So maybe, that's something you might be able to delve into. Personally, I mean, if you're going to look at Marshall, why don't you just look at Patino? Both of them to me are, trouble. Question I have, I'm a Frank man. So we're going to wait 44 more years to go to another, or now it's been 49 years? We're going to wait 49 more years to go to another NCAA? I mean, how many NCAA tournament games did we win before Frank Martin?
One that mattered.
Okay, so, 2, because we won one that was a, what do you call it?
Consolation.
Consolation.
Well, I'm saying
so
that one didn't matter. I'm talking about the one.
Yeah, but I'm saying we had 2 full wins in the NCAA.
Yeah.
This man, in 10 years, and you can just say 1 year, gave us 4 wins.
Right. He had a great year. They had a great run. It all came together. It was unbelievable excitement for South Carolina fans. It was great to cover because I was fortunate enough to be able to cover them every step of the way through Greenville up to New York. And then K-Mac covered him in the Final Four. Because
you didn't go to Phoenix?
Supposedly he had family living in Phoenix. I've yet to meet him, but supposedly he had family in Phoenix he could stay with. Yeah, right, K-Mac. Anyway, but Andy,
what was the buyout?
10 years,
Phil?
9 years of postseason opportunity and just 2 visits to the postseason. I mean, that's not a good record in today's world of judging coaches. And the buyout's $3 million.
The record
the buyout's $3 million.
Look at the record you're comparing it against. What are we? Are we a national power? Have we ever been a national
but you
power?
cannot be held down by your past. You can't let your past hold you back. You can't say we're not supposed to be there and use that as an excuse.
I'm not saying that, but I don't think that we should look at a coach who took a team. I'll put it this way. I don't think Devin Carter will be on this team next year. I think that he's going to light up the transfer portal on the SEC.
They can find 100 Devin Carters.
You think maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's a good player, and he's an exciting type player. Is he a program breaker? No. There's nobody on that roster that's not replaceable.
Well, you brought in 5 players from the transfer portal last year, so it wouldn't really be a big change if you do it again this year, would it?
Right. I think who they're going to – I mean, whoever they end up with has got to be somebody who has got some strong AAU connections, unfortunately. That's kind of where you got to be this day and age. You got to have strong AAU ties. You got to be close to those programs. You got to work those programs to get those coaches and those managers and all to help steer players your way. So that's something to consider when you look at hiring a new coach who's got those kind of ties, both with the programs here in the state, but more importantly, those big national programs, your CP3s and your whatever else they're out there playing on the AAU scale.
The Murray State coach, does he have? I mean, it seems like he comes into South Carolina and picks kids up. Does he have ties into AAU, or is he just reaching out to kids who aren't, kind of like a Morant, who didn't really have any offers before, and he just noticed them?
Well, they just stumbled upon Morant. That was
but he's also come in and picked up other players from South Carolina who's gone out to Murray State. That's why I didn't know if he had any kind of, position with the AAU coaches. I think Coach Ritchie up in Furman, I mean, if you're going to go in that kind of lower route, he deserves a chance. And you know what? He hasn't been a coach yet, but someone's going to have to give him a chance, and it's his home. And B.J. Mackey. And don't think about Boynton because we can't afford the buyout. Okay, his buyout's tremendous.
Yes, it is. I think that's going to take him out of play. We got to run.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Y'all
much.
have a good evening,
You
fellas.
too. Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks,
good
Andy.
Stuff. Appreciate the phone call. Hit the break. We'll come back with more. 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Cameron Smith has won the TPC. Final round of 66, 13 under. Anirban Lahiri finished second, 69 for him, 12 under. Paul Casey finished with a 69, 11 under. Kevin Kisner from Aiken, a 68. He finishes at 10 under par. We'll be back. Dustin Johnson, a 63 in the final round. He finishes at 7 under. And we'll be back.
Founders Federal Credit Union knows your life is busy and your money is important. We are proud to offer local personalized services and convenient online services like Founders Online and the Founders app. You'll love being with us as much as we love serving you. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership with Founders. Relax, win with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
The Space Coast, keep on going up. But you know what? They might have the First Coast and the Space Coast, but they don't have the Grand Strand. We have the Grand Strand here in South Carolina. You can have a piece of the Grand Strand, or you can visit the Grand Strand for a little vacation and a little getaway. And the best way to do that, to take care of all your accommodations, is to call James Smith Realty at 843-237-4246, Paulie's Vacation Rentals. Get your summer vacation plans squared away now because you want to go down to the best beach in the world, and that is the Grand Strand. Litchfield, Pawleys, Surfside, Garden City, Myrtle, Redneck Riviera, North Myrtle, you name it. Even go south to Georgetown, Debadoo. They can handle properties all up and down the coast. You want to buy something? Let Jimmy Smith and James Smith Realty take care of that for you as well. 843-237-4246 or visit Paulie'sVacationRentals.com. Let me drop in a couple of quick newsy items here before we get back to your phone calls. Number 4 USC picked up its third win of the season Sunday at the Augusta Invitational. This is women's golf. Gamecocks were co-champs, finishing tied for first with Ole Miss at 14 under. Meantime, the Clemson women had 27 birdies, shot 12 under in the final round. They won the 2022 Clover Cup. They were number 1 out of 17 teams, 8 of which were ranked. Coastal Carolina got a big one on Wednesday night. They're hosting Maryland Eastern Shore in the
Basketball Classic,
the Zelmo Beatty game. UMES has a losing record, but we're going to ignore that. So more basketball for the Shots. Bose has signed Aaliyah Boston, Wendell Moore, and Chet Holmgren to name, image, and likeness deals. The three will wear Bose Quiet Comfort 45 noise-canceling headphones as they walk in and out of the arenas, I guess.
Nice. Yeah.
So congratulations to that. South Carolina officially announced today Devontae Holloman joining the football program as a defensive analyst, former Gamecock standout, and, of course, head coach at South Point. Panthers have released defensive end Morgan Fox. That saves them $3 million versus the cap. And Stephon Gilmore, the former Gamecock, and Dante Jackson, both testing free agent markets. There have been discussions on both sides. There is a chance that neither comes back to the Panthers, according to Jonathan Alexander, who covers the Panthers. Former Gamecock Brandon Shell, a free agent offensive tackle from Seattle, has received interest from several teams, including the Broncos. He is close with Russell Wilson. Possible he could return to Seattle. The NCAA women's tournament games in Columbia Friday. Number 8 Miami will take on number 9 USF at 11:30 on the Deuce. The Gamecocks take on the winner of Wednesday's first 4 game, Howard versus Incarnate Word, on Friday at 2 o'clock on ESPN. The winners of Friday's games will play on Sunday.
If I gave you either of those teams and 55 points, would you take them against South Carolina?
No, sir.
Because I wouldn't.
No, sir. Though I'm becoming a big Incarnate Word fan.
You like Incarnate Word. The NCAA had a golden opportunity here, Phil, and I was telling you this earlier today. Here's another one of their screw-ups after their major screw-up last year with regards to how different the women's tournament was treated versus the men's tournament. So they obviously tried to equalize things, and for the most part have done a pretty good job. But instead of adding 4 more teams to the women's side to make it a field of 68, why not constrict the men's tournament down to 64 and stop having so many teams go to the NCAA tournament?
Be so much whining about how hard they're making it to get to the NCAA now. If they
You've got a Michigan team that made it in and not playing in the playing game that's 17 and 14. How really hard is it? Yeah,
couldn't believe
is it
that
to get into the tournament?
USC women are the 7-4 favorites to win the women's championship. This is from Bet Online. 7-4. Gamecocks, Connecticut 7-2. Stanford 19-4. NC State 10-1. Louisville 14-1. Baylor 20-1, and Arizona 33-1. And the USC women finished the season number 1 in the AP Top 25 for the second time in 3 years. They went wire to wire as the number 1 team in the country, I do believe. Even after their losses, they stayed number 1. It shows you the respect that the voters have for them. All right, back to your phone calls. 888-898-2525. We go to, going to give him another shot. Is it Delvin? Is he back up? How did he get to number 1 so quick? Delvin in Fountain Inn. You're lucky that we have a big heart and we're taking you back in. Welcome back.
No, I'm always number 1, man. You got to realize that, Phil.
Yes, sir.
But I'm more shocked about this. If you would have told me a college coach instead of South Carolina would have got fired, I probably put my money on Brad Brownell instead of Frank Martin.
You know, I never felt like Brownell was, and I could be wrong. Clemson put out a statement tomorrow, but I haven't felt like Brownell was in trouble. New athletics director. He's got the support, very close with Dabo Swinney. And, you know, I think everything kind of runs through Dabo up there to some degree. If he supports you, that's a big bonus. Team played hard, won some games down the stretch. Yeah, they had a bunch of close losses. You can blame the coach. Got a good team coming back and 3 good signees. So I'm not so sure I'd make that move. And he's coming off an NCAA tournament year. So I don't think I'd make that move at Clemson, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm more shocked by this. I wasn't shocked by the Braves and Fred Freeman. I knew that was going to happen when they didn't sign him during the season. And when they won the World Series and Poppy asked him, "Are you going to be staying in Atlanta?" And he started laughing a little bit. I knew then right there he wasn't coming back to Atlanta.
Taking that Dodger money. Everybody hate the Dodgers now, okay?
Yeah, they used to hate our Yankees, but now they're hating the Dodgers. Thank you, Dodgers. Thank you, Dodgers. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, Delvin, thank you very much. Let's go to Debbie in Columbia. Top of the hour break is coming up. We'll continue with calls and more, plus recruiting. Debbie, welcome into Sports Talk.
Hi, guys. I just want to say I'm a big Frank Martin supporter. I don't want a pansy coach, but with that said, I don't want someone that's going to be physically and verbally abusive, but I don't think he has. Were we not aware of his past allegations when we hired him? And, I don't think should expect to be pampered. I've got two words: Bobby Knight. I think people are giving Frank. I grew up on Frank McGuire basketball, but I appreciate Frank Martin, and I think that we're just coming down too hard on him, and I support him immensely, and so I don't want a pansy coach, and I don't think that players should be pampered by any coach.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you
So
very much. Thank you very much.
thank
You know,
you.
be careful when you throw Bobby Knight out there because that's a different type of in-your-face coach because he was physical. He was physical, Chris, back in the day when people just sort of winked at it and didn't pay any attention to it, you know?
Exactly.
Until
exactly.
later on when it came back to bite him and people got after him and all that
He
kind
threw
of
a
stuff.
chair across the floor. That was sort of the beginning of the end for him.
He was standing up for America when he did that. Remember, that was in some international game, right? That was in like a Pan Am Games or the Olympics or something. But Bobby Knight is a different animal than Frank Martin. I don't think you can really compare the two totally. Be right back.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Ukrainian and Russian officials have held a new round of talks as Moscow's troops press their assault on Kiev and other cities. In remarks to the UN Security Council, UN Undersecretary General for Political Affairs Rosemary DiCarlo says Russian forces have now launched daily deadly airstrikes in the west of Ukraine.
As I said 3 days ago in this very chamber, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has received credible reports of Russian forces using cluster munitions, including in populated areas.
Meanwhile, President Biden is considering a trip to Europe for talks with allies and partners about the war in Ukraine.
Officials here at the White House are weighing the possibility of presidential travel to Europe in the coming weeks. But White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says
there's not been any final decision about a trip.
According to 3 U.S. officials familiar with the deliberations, one possible destination for the meetings would be Brussels, which is the headquarters for NATO. They say the trip would underscore the Biden administration's support for NATO allies. Greg Clugston, the White House.
President Biden's nomination of Sarah Bloom Raskin to serve on the Federal Reserve Board faces opposition from West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, likely dooming her chances of confirmation.
Manchin's opposition makes it exceedingly difficult for Raskin, the wife of Democratic Maryland Congressman Jamie Raskin, to be confirmed. Manchin said in a statement on Monday, her previous public statements have failed to satisfactorily address my concerns about the critical importance of financing an all-of-the-above energy policy to meet our nation's critical energy needs. I've come to the conclusion that I'm unable to support her nomination to serve as a member of the Federal Reserve Board.
That's correspondent Bernie Bennett reporting. On Wall Street, the Dow by a point, the Nasdaq dropped 262, the S&P 500 lower by 31. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Tell me why Relief Factor is so successful in lowering or eliminating pain. I'm often asked that question. Pete and Seth Talbot, the father and son founders of Relief Factor, tell me they believe our bodies were designed to heal. The doctors who formulated Relief Factor selected the 4 best ingredients, 100% drug-free ingredients that each help your body deal with inflammation. Order the 3-week quick start now. Discount it to only $19.95 to see if it will work for you too. Call 800-500-8384. ReliefFactor.com.
This week on RVER, sponsored by Progressive Insurance.
Oh, that new doctor is drop dead gorgeous. Oh, please, he's just another RV League educated surgeon with good hair. No, he's different.
Nurse, this week got a Class C motorhome with a
She's on break. I'll handle this one. Oh, you conniving little...
When your RV really needs saving, Progressive has you covered. See if you could save with a leader in RV insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, covered subject to policy terms.
Iran has reportedly suspended talks with Saudi Arabia in the wake of a mass execution.
Iranian state-linked media reports that country has decided to suspend talks aimed at defusing tensions with regional rival Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia reportedly put to death 81 people, a group that activists believe included over 36 Shiites. Iran is the largest Shiite Muslim country in the world. Saudi Arabia's Shiites have long complained of being treated as second-class citizens. Saudi Arabia's executions of Shiites have stirred regional unrest in the past. I'm Walter Ratliff.
The United Nations Chief and Executive Director of the World Food Program are warning Russia's war against Ukraine is threatening the global food supply and putting some of the world's poorest countries at risk. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says that 45 African and least developed countries import at least a third of their wheat from Ukraine and Russia. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Not as chilly as we've had the last couple of evenings. Clouds roll in. We'll have a low of 42. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 72 and a slight 20% chance of an afternoon shower. Wednesday looks like a rain out with thunderstorms likely on and off throughout the day. Mild temps the rest of the week, and spring arrives on Sunday. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Yeah, just to finish up with Debbie, who called before the bottom of the hour, top of the hour break, and we're talking about Frank Martin, and she mentioned Bobby Knight, and she talked to Pat during the break. She was not trying to say that Frank Martin's like Bobby Knight in any way, and that's not something that she was looking for in a coach. She just liked the firmness and the sternness of Frank Martin, which is fair. Of course, it's fair. And Bobby Knight, of course, that was just a totally different animal at a different time back in the mid '80s. Mm-hmm. And you're right, Chris. You said at the very end it was Purdue. Google never forgets. Purdue '85 is when he threw the chair.
Well, the funny part was, Phil, I made the comment that was the beginning of the end. That may have been the longest beginning of the end for any career in history, because that occurred 15 years before he was fired at Indiana. Mm-hmm. Had no idea. I mean, back then you could ignore those type incidences. We've changed, and probably for the better, but it's a different landscape. And coaches that sling chairs, and do some of the crazy stuff that Bobby Knight did, you can't get away with right now. And that's going to be if Greg Marshall is indeed one of the candidates, Ray Tanner's going to have a long talk with him, and then also a sort of introspective look if that's the kind of coach, if his reputation precedes him, if that's the kind of coach you want to bring in.
Well, let me say this, and look, when you're hosting a talk show, you can throw names out there of candidates,
sure,
people that you think are good for whatever reason. I can tell you now officially through a source that, and this isn't going to shock anybody, but Greg Marshall would be very interested in the South Carolina job. I've confirmed that through a source. He has had contact by other people for other jobs. I don't think anything with South Carolina. I just think it would be worth Ray Tanner just testing the waters there, just calling and having a conversation with him and feeling him out, and maybe, I don't know, talking to some people around him. I mean, I'm telling you, of the coaches that are available right now, unless you go way up the coaching success ladder and think you can get somebody who's like a top 5 or top 10 winning coach, which I don't know that you can, Greg Marshall's, from a pure winning and losing standpoint, he's got your best resume. Now, can you, like you said, like we were talking to Keith, can you forgive a guy? Does a guy get another chance after he made bad mistakes, apparently mistakes that he did, things that he denies, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know one way or the other. I'm having to rely on what I read, but just from an exciting the Gamecock fan base, I think you would see season ticket sales double the moment you hired Greg Marshall. If he wins the press conference, which I have no doubt that he would win the press conference, show people, hey, whatever happened at Wichita, bad time, immature, learn some things. I'm good now. I'm good now. And I'm just throwing that out there as my own thought about who would be a good candidate.
Well, and Phil, one other thing about Greg Marshall, he's about to turn 60. So here's a guy, would be on the backside of his career. He's 59 right now.
Holy cow.
But here's a guy that would go sort of outside the box of the hires that Ray Tanner has made thus far. You look at the two baseball hires, and of course, Chad Holbrook was going to get that job regardless. And then now Mark Kingston, two guys that had not proven themselves at this level before. And certainly, Will Muschamp, and now what are you doing here? You've gone fairly young with your hires, with Shane Beamer included in that mix. So do you go really young with an inexperienced coach who has not coached at a Power 5 level job in the SEC, or do you go with a proven track record with the checkered background? That's going to be the answer. And if you can overlook, and if Greg Marshall can convince you that that's not who he is, and it was he said, she said, and the coach is always going to lose that argument. If he can convince you that he's not that type person, I don't see how you can ignore interviewing Greg Marshall for the job.
But Marshall would have to he'd have to be like Beamer. He'd have to really come after it hard and sell everything he's got, I think. Beamer went after the football job at South Carolina with everything he had, sort of like he was going to let Ray say no to him. And Marshall would have to do the same thing. He'd have to come after it really hard and show him exactly what you're saying and not give him an opportunity or give him a reason to say no. Is he in that kind of mindset for it? I don't know. I just know, again, from a source confirming that he would certainly be interested in the South Carolina job if it were to the opportunity were to come his way. All right, let's get back to phone calls as we go around the state of South Carolina. We go to now he's got no dog in this fight. Tiger Bryan in Lancaster. Welcome in, Tiger Bryan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. It's a beautiful day in South Carolina, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Hey, I got a comment. Yeah, I don't have a dog in the fight. If I was Tanner, and when I interviewed Marshall, I'd have me a Gamecock wrestling belt and say, hey, you know how they do in football, the chains and this, that, and that. So look, don't put your hands on the players, but you have a belt, because he's like he's wrestling somewhere.
He needs a what was it Venables had at Clemson? He needs a get back coach. Yeah. He needs a get back assistant. Yeah.
Hey, I got another comment. I was talking the other week about my Power Rangers and all. Now I called it right out of the gate, didn't I? Hey, they got the Avengers now at Clemson defense.
Yeah.
I was wondering what they was gonna come up with.
They look pretty nasty up there on defense. Defensive front looks pretty nasty.
Yeah. Well, I just hope we can do something on the offensive line. That's the big issue.
Well, I hear Tristan Lee has looked good because McFadden's been dealing with some injuries. Lee's getting a lot of work at left tackle, so it looks like you'll be too deep. I think you're going to be pretty much too deep across the board on the offensive line. You're going to be pretty much too deep. You get Dietrich Pennington back from the knee injury. You got Mitchell Mays working out in there. Parks is solid at right tackle. Sounds like the move of Putnam to center has gone extremely well. So I think it's going to be okay.
Well, what about the transfer guy?
You mean the transfer guy they're looking for?
No, I read that. I thought they had one. They don't have an offensive line transfer guy?
Not that I'm aware of, unless something's happened in the last few hours. Clemson offensive line transferred? No. The only transfer they have is Hunter Johnson, the quarterback.
Well, man, that's yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you what. Well, I must have read something wrong. My wife she's getting root canal. I was read everything for 2 hours a day. I must have read too much.
I could be wrong. Let me see. I'll check around. And thanks for the phone call. I'll check around and see if anybody has posted anything on the Clemson sites about a transfer offensive lineman, but I haven't seen anything yet. TigerNet's usually my go-to for Clemson on something like that, Pat.
He might be thinking about, I believe Will Putnam is now going to be moved to the center position.
Correct.
So it is a new center, but it's not a new player on the team.
Yeah.
So maybe he's thinking about that.
Yeah, don't see anything. Go back and check your sources there, Tiger Bryan.
And speaking of spring football, it strikes me as odd that the Gamecocks actually open up spring football tomorrow. What a time to do so, huh?
We haven't even talked about it. That was going to be, part of our big stories. But 9:45 in the morning, I'll be out there. You coming down to watch?
I'll let you handle the
Well, you're going
first.
to
I'm
Darlington
going to be in
tomorrow.
Darlington tomorrow for
They're
you.
testing
Tire
tires.
test.
They're
Yeah,
testing
tires. Nothing more exciting than a tire test with Goodyear in NASCAR. Though Denny Hamlin will be speaking over here, so that should be interesting.
Good race. Let's say this real quick. Another good race at Phoenix yesterday. Big crowd. Looked like the place was packed in. So NASCAR is off to a tremendous start from that standpoint.
I love the Phoenix
races and big crowds.
And I love the Phoenix track, Phil. It reminds me of the bumper cars that you see at the amusement park where you can slide all over the place because these guys go way down in the infield and they can come back all the way across the track. I wish more tracks were like Phoenix. It's got so much character and so much space to run around in. It's a lot of fun to watch a race out there.
All right, now Gamecock Central, which of course is part of the university because they pay the players for interviews. They've got their hot board as well. Coaching candidates. They've got Bob Ritchie. They've got Lamont Paris. They've got Sean Miller. You know, the websites, they read each other. They got Matt McMahon. They throw Jerome Tang in there, the Baylor assistant. I don't think he's going to hire an assistant coach. Dennis Gates, Cleveland State head coach. Nico Medved. Now that's one I would like from the standpoint of his history in the state and what he's done at Colorado State. But as you mentioned, he just signed a new contract there. Earl Grant at Boston College. That they throw his name in there. So, and of course, he's got ties to the state. He coached at Clemson, Winthrop, Citadel, high school coaching in South Carolina. So he's got strong ties to the state. We continue on the phones as we go to John in Rock Hill. Thank you for your patience, John. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good.
I got 2 points. First of all, let me get this one out of the way. I was actually at work today when I got the news about the Atlanta Braves, our new first baseman, and I just, I was going through Twitter real quick, and some people were like, oh, this is a bummer, like, it just spells the end of Freddie Freeman, which is, a loss in a way, but I don't think it's a huge dip in production between him and Olsen. Not saying Olsen is Freddie Freeman. Like, Matt Olsen has to be Matt Olsen. Don't be Freddie Freeman. Like, nobody can. But I did like what Alex Anthopoulos said today, this afternoon. He said, at a point when you're trying to fill out your team, you have to make a decision and just move on. You can't keep waiting around on as good a player as Freddie Freeman is. You can't keep waiting. We, like Alex said, we've got other holes in this team to figure out, and you can't, be held by one guy.
Sure.
And then my thoughts on Frank Martin, around that, a few minutes later after that, like I get there's some people out there that love Frank Martin and like all that. Like I do appreciate what he did the last decade for the program and all, but it just wasn't working the last 2 or 3 years. And I'm sorry, one tournament appearance in 10 years is not good enough. I get it, South Carolina. It's different expectations. But you need to make the tournament more than 1 year. I'm sorry, and I appreciate what he did, like I said, but one time's not good enough, and that's just, I don't know, it just wasn't working. It was the same thing with Muschamp, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just wasn't working, and gotta move on, and everyone wants to make the tournament. You need to make it more than once.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, that's what you're judged by. You're judged by how many times you make it to, not the NIT, not the, what's it called? The Classic?
The Basketball Classic or the CBI, the other two. And those, the Power 5 programs aren't playing in those tournaments anyhow.
No. And you're basically buying your way into these things, right? The schools that are going in there, paying their way in. So, I can't disagree with what you're saying. For the good things that Frank Martin did for South Carolina, for the way he represented the university, the things he did in the community, all good stuff, he didn't get them to the tournament enough. Is Brad Brownell doing it enough at Clemson? How many times has he been to the tournament in his time at Clemson? Off the top of my head, I want to say 4,
3,
but it might be 3. What is it, Pat?
It's 3, and remember the first one was he was using Oliver Purnell's players, and then he had a 6 or 7 year break until he made it again, and he's made it to a Sweet 16, but he has been to 3.
He's been to 3 NCAAs, and how many NITs?
Oh shoot, I don't have that in front of me.
He made a Final
I'm not
Four
sure
of the
offhand.
NIT.
He
made
did.
a Final Four of the NIT. He's been to 2 or 3 NITs. And look, if they don't make it next year, Clemson, then I do think that Clemson's going to have to make the hard decision at that point in time. I don't think this year is the year to do it for them.
I would agree. But I think they're an NCAA tournament team going into next year with what they have coming back if P.J. Hall can stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to surround your entire in Brad Brownell's case, maybe his entire future at Clemson around one player. But that's the case. I mean, he is by far their best player, should be a first-team All-ACC performer if he can just stay on the floor. They've got to find a way to keep him healthy.
All right, let's hit the break. We'll continue with your phone calls. Got recruiting coming up. One baseball score from this afternoon, and that is that Charleston Southern. Is this baseball? I don't know. Wait a minute. Yeah, I guess it is baseball. Charleston Southern lost to St. Mary's 9-5 in a shortened game. I don't know why it was short. I should read these things before I go on the air. We'll be back in just a moment.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
It's almost time for the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic. I know we're excited.
Me too. I'm going for all the awesome camping gear.
Not to mention they have everything I need to get out on the river.
I'm looking forward to it. I can always find what I need for my outdoor adventures.
Don't miss the Palmetto Sportsman's Classic at the State Fairgrounds, sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance, March 25th through the 27th. Purchase your tickets now at psclassic.com.
See you at the Classic.
Charleston Southern at one time was like number 2 in the RPI. They're now 8-11. They've dropped in the RPI. We'll give you the new RPI coming up here in a little bit. And what else were we going to say? We were talking about, Brad Brownell, 6 postseasons in 12 years. Basically every other year at Clemson. That should be enough for the Clemson faithful.
That'd be enough for most places outside of, North Carolina and Duke and Kentucky. But, I mean, if Frank Martin had gone to 6 postseason appearances in his 10 years, no, we're not having this discussion today.
I think you're right. And then really, again, only 9 of the years had a postseason. There was that one year they didn't have one. All right, let's go to Will and Manning with us next right here on Sports Talk. Will, welcome in. How are you?
I'm fine, Phil. Thanks for taking my call. A couple of 3 things I want to quickly get to. So we were carrying a coach. It was a 69-99 SEC record. And I don't know what it is, but the SEC road record has got to be even worse. Maybe your crack staff can tell us maybe tomorrow. But one thing, how many times has a South Carolina or Columbia player, most recently, a kid named Ellis, would come in and play and then have a stellar night? A recruit that, people would say, why didn't we sign this kid? It happened way, way too much. Now, I know you can't get everybody, but the overreaching thing is what you said on the air about a year and a half ago or so, maybe just a year, that Martin never capitalized on the 2017 run as far as recruiting goes.
Correct.
And that's my view of the thing. And that really perplexed me and has ever since that happened. So maybe I can get your thoughts on some of those points.
Very good. Yeah. Well, he didn't. He really didn't. And, he said they basically cleaned house the year after the Final Four and started over again and never really was able to capitalize on the fame and fortune that should come from a Final Four. And look at the three other teams in that Final Four. Compare them where they are today to South Carolina. You got Gonzaga, number one team in the country. You got North Carolina, which is North Carolina, and Oregon, which has stayed pretty good, and I think they're in the NIT this year. So they've all maintained their level of success. Now, Gonzaga and North Carolina are already good, and Oregon has been good, and I guess has gotten better once again. But to answer your question, your comment, I would agree, never really built on that success of that year. And then, of course, you had a string of really good in-state players that followed that Final Four run and basically got none of them, And you're watching the kid at Tennessee who's from Porter-Gaud, a key player for them as they're going to the tournament. And, of course, there was Zion Williamson who, Martin believes he has said that they were going to get him if he didn't go to Duke. I think Clemson thought they were going to get him if he hadn't, the story that Merle Code is telling in his book, that Clemson was going to get him until Duke got it done in some other ways, if you want to believe what Merle Code is writing about. And there's been many other players from the state that haven't given South Carolina really much of a sniff. Now, people want to blame the AAU coaches involved with these players for a lot of that Martin is not in good enough with these AAU players. I've had some high school coaches in the state tell me that Frank, his recruiting style is not strong enough, and that he doesn't just wear out the kids in recruiting. He'll let a kid know. This was told to me by a high school coach who's had many big-time players. He'll let the kid know that you have a place at South Carolina. We want you. Here's an offer, and we're going to recruit you, but we're not going to be one of those that just wears you out every day with a phone call or a video or all that kind of stuff. And, that's his way. That apparently has been his way. And I guess it didn't work well with the players in state. They want to be loved, and they want to be felt like they're the greatest thing on the planet, and you've got to have them to be successful as a coach, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. That was not his recruiting style at South Carolina. Probably not his recruiting style anywhere. I don't blame him for that. That's his way. His way was, hey, you've got an offer here. If you want to come to South Carolina and enjoy everything that we have to offer and be a hero in the state, we want you. Come on and let's go. That kind of thing. It worked, I guess, with Thornwell. And, of course, with Dozier, you always had the connection there, of course, with the family and the university and everything there, and the hometown kid working in your favor. I mean, those are probably the two highest regarded high school players that Martin signed during his time in South Carolina, when you think about it. Silver turned out to be a pro, but, I mean, he wasn't I don't think he was like a top 50 guy coming out of high school. Good player, but not a top 50 guy, I don't think. That kind of guy. They developed him into a good player. Carrera was a guy who was raw as hell, and they developed him into an excellent player.
I think Carrera sort of fits what Frank Martin wants in a player. He's even talked about him, even this season, about him and Mike Kotsar, some guys that, for whatever reason, weren't very highly recruited. And I think Frank Martin enjoyed getting a big lump of clay and trying to shape it and mold it into a basketball player. And I thought he did a pretty good job with those type guys, but you're spot on with regards to the top players that just never seem to materialize. And probably the one regret he's always going to have moving forward in his tenure at South Carolina now that it's over is the fact that he wasn't able to take advantage of that 2017 season.
All right, let's go back to the phones. It's Jeff in Charleston next with us. Jeff, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
Good. Good to have you with us.
Okay. Continuing with the conversation, I don't think Frank Martin should have anything to do with recruiting, just like Donald Trump shouldn't be having a Twitter account. I think that if Frank Martin had got him a Shane Beamer as a recruiter or a Dabo Sweeney, he's just a no BS kind of guy. He's going to say, hey, this is what I like you. You're a great guy. You want to come play for us? I'm going to give you the best I got. He's a sergeant. He's a drill sergeant, which is what I think people my age in the 50s and over love a drill sergeant for these kids because they're TikTok kids. They're Facebook kids. But they also want to be swooned, just like you said. They want to be, hey, we're so excited about you. We see you're into this and you're into that. They want to BS a lot. And Frank's not a BSer. He's not a salesman. Dabo, greatest salesman in the world, right? Shane Beamer, probably going to be the second greatest salesman, if not the best salesman. But you got to have a salesman as your front runner in recruiting. Frank should have made the first call in 2017 and then had his backup guy, Mr. Sales Guy, in there. And another great salesman and a drill sergeant is Don Staley. I'm curious as to why Carolina couldn't make a crazy move. We don't want to lose the girls' team, but man, I bet she's got a great assistant. Why can't we have the greatest coach in female basketball take over a men's team and do what nobody else has been able to do?
That would create a bit of news across the country. Let's discuss that on the bottom side of this break, and then we'll do recruiting as well and continue with your phone calls. We thank you for your call. That was a great call. We'll be back in just a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Not as chilly as we've had the last couple of evenings. Clouds roll in. We'll have a low of 42. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 72 and a slight 20% chance of an afternoon shower. Wednesday looks like a rain out with thunderstorms likely on and off throughout the day. Mild temps the rest of the week, and spring arrives on Sunday. Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. Have you missed any special occasions in the last couple of months? Or are you planning a special occasion? What about graduation? That'll be here before you know it. And it's not just about a meal, it's sitting around a table and spending time together, reconnecting. When you come in, we encourage you to take your time, or you can just come in for dessert. We're still at 1410 Colonial Life Boulevard. Give us a call. 731-8500.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. President Biden's national security advisor has warned a top Chinese official about China's support for Russia and the Ukrainian invasion, even as the Kremlin denies anew that it had requested Chinese military equipment. U.S. Advisor Jake Sullivan and senior Chinese foreign policy advisor Yang Jiechi met in Rome on Monday, with the Biden administration increasingly concerned that China is using the war to advance its long-term interest in its competition with the United States. Officials said the U.S. has determined that China has signaled to Russia that it would be willing to provide both military support for the campaign in Ukraine and financial backing to help stave off the impact of severe sanctions imposed by the West. On Wall Street, the Dow by a point, the Nasdaq dropped 262. This is SRN News.
Balance of Nature, changing the world one life at a time.
I'm a physician, and I still see patients every day. And, so I tell my patients about this. And they ask me, what are you taking? And so I tell them, taking Balance of Nature. And they go, oh, yeah, I've heard about that. So I tell them how to get it. I give them your telephone number, 246-8751. And I tell them, call this number. And I said, they'll take care of you after that. So, I'm primary care. I really think that it works well for people to have fruits and vegetables.
Start your journey to better health with Balance of Nature right now. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go to balanceofnature.com for more information or to place your order. Shipping is always free. And don't forget to get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer by using discount code SALEM.
Are you looking for free checking and free savings? Dave Ramsey here, telling you to go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank that's so big they lose the ability to treat you like a human being. At Palmetto Citizens, you're not just a number, you're a member. Join today at any of their 14 locations or at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
You know what? I get asked every now and then, Kev, when you say my guy, do you really have a my guy at Palmetto Exterminators? Well, I really do. Ron Byers is my guy. Do you realize I've been a customer of Palmetto Exterminators for 20 years this summer? That's over the course of 3 homes, longer than my kids have been around. I'm loyal to Palmetto Exterminators for several reasons. First, they do a phenomenal job with pest control for a very fair price. It's just not a concern around my home. They take care of everything from regular visits to termite inspection, mosquito care. This is a company that's been around for more than 60 years serving the Midlands. When they come around, they're clean, they're courteous, and they're on time. Look, it's not just me. When it comes to things like those pesky mosquitoes, Palmetto Exterminators voted best of Columbia in Columbia Metropolitan for their mosquito control. I could have told you that before anyone even voted. What else can you possibly need from your pest control company? If you're looking for someone to help you, look no further than my guy, Ron Byers, Palmetto Exterminators. Online, it's palmettoexterminators.net or call them 254-5833, 254-5833.
Attention listeners, con artists have many tricks for stealing your money, but the AARP Fraud Watch Network is here to help you protect yourself and your family. We give you the tools you need to spot and avoid scams. So listen for the AARP Fraud Watch Network alerts. Use our scam tracking map to see the latest scams and sign up for prevention tips and alerts from law enforcement. To learn how to outsmart con artists before they strike, visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Way to reach us here on Sports Talk. We go next to. Did you want to say something, Pat, about we were talking about recruiting, and you want to take a look? You looked up Martin's recruiting rankings since the Final Four run.
Right. Just to piggyback on what you guys were saying before the
Not
break.
that the rankings are the end all.
Of course not. Right. But if we're on the subject of not capitalizing since that 2017 Final Four run, well, since then, the Gamecocks' overall record is 75-73. So you're just above 500. Also, the recruiting classes since then, 2017 was ranked number 64 in the country, 12th in the SEC. The next year was 55 in the country, 10th in the SEC. Then it was 45th in 2019, 11th in the SEC. 100th in 2020, 13th in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, 29. So 2021 was actually his best recruiting class, and it was number 29 in the country and number 6 in the SEC. But now this season, 2022, is number 51 in the country and 10th in the SEC. So that is out of those 6 classes, 5 of the 6 have been 11th or worse in the SEC. That's just not enough to get it done. And at that point, his teams year in and year out, we've grown to know what to expect with Frank Martin's teams. They're going to start the season slow, but as the season progresses, he is a fantastic coach at making players better as the season goes. The more they buy into his system, the more they start to play the way he wants them to play. He's going to put them in a position to be a fringe tournament team every season. He's either going to barely make it or barely miss it. And I guess, personally, I think Ray Tanner had to look at that and ask himself, am I okay with that? Where he gives us a chance every year, and that's better than a lot of teams that are at the bottom of the conference that never have a chance. But his teams are never going to win the SEC. They're never going to be at the tip top. They're not going to be that kind of team. And it just comes down to, as a fan base and as the athletic director, is that good enough? Or do you want to risk going out and finding somebody that can be better, which, of course, conversely, you also take the risk of bringing in another Darren Horn and going backwards.
Yeah. The one thing they have been lacking since the Final Four run, they never really landed and developed a quality point guard. They took some transfers. Dwayne Notice was such an excellent point guard. He was perfect for what Martin wanted on the court, and he had the surrounding talent. And maybe they didn't have the surrounding talent, but he never was able to get the point guard situation, Chris, sorted out. Even this year, you know, Kuznard, Carter, sometimes it was the freshman that came in and played some there. He just never could find or recruit that quality point guard who could go out there and be selfless and run an offense and not worry about his scoring.
No, you're right, Phil. And that's in college basketball anymore. If you're not any good in the backcourt, you've got no shot because it's not a big man's game anymore. The three-point shot has changed the game so much. Transition is so important in distributing the basketball, and you've got to be solid at the point guard. just watch the tournament over the next couple of weeks. The teams that advance are going to be the ones that are really, really good in the backcourt and have the complementary pieces. But they start with a solid point guard. And the Final Four teams, I can almost guarantee you now, all four of them will have a really, really good point guard.
Yeah, look at the top three teams in the SEC. Auburn, great little point guard. He can score. He can shoot the deep ball, but he is a point guard, and he runs that offense. Tennessee, same thing. Nice little point guard who runs the offense, distributes the basketball, scores when necessary. Kentucky, their point guard came from Georgia as a transfer. Wheeler, good point guard, and he knows his role. The best point guards, yeah, it's nice to be able to score, but give me a point guard who gives up the scoring in exchange for the great pass or the setting up of the play or the assist. That's what makes a great offense in my mind. All right, back to the phones we go, and it is going to be Hank in Columbia next. Hank, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Corn. Two things. When you mentioned the thing about the Final Four, and the three teams that you mentioned that were in the Final Four, Carolina, those teams, the one thing you didn't mention about those teams is those teams have kind of been established before. Carolina in that Final Four was kind of similar to George Mason the year they made the Final Four, VCU the year they made the Final Four. Those are teams that I don't know if you can look at the years after where those programs are, because they're back about the same place they were beforehand, just like Carolina. They weren't established programs going in, and they got the Final Four boost, but it wasn't something that was going to tremendously change them at all. Now, I agree with you in the recruiting issue. The recruiting's been a problem. One thing I don't agree with is Ja Morant was being pushed by a lot of people. When he was coming out of middle school, there were a lot of people telling Frank about him. And Frank knew about him well in enough time. There wasn't no such thing as Murray State got on him first. The problem that happened with Ja, and it's happened with some of these players that we've had that have left this state and proven themselves and going back, was Ja, just like Steph Curry, was looked at as a tweener because he was slight of frame. And Frank thought he was going to have the guy that played with them on the Final Four, the point guard that got in trouble and got run off.
Yeah.
And so therefore he slow played Ja until they realized that the guy got in trouble. And then when you try to jump back in, Murray State had been saying all along, you're our priority, you're our priority. Here they come just because the guy got kicked off the team, and here they come back to you. How much can you count on that if another, what they call tape measure, big-time point guard shows up? So, and that's been, that's kind of been the issue with some of our better players in the state, is some of them, they're really good players. People know they're really good players. They look like tweeners going out. And then all of us, and we pass on them to get somebody that kind of looks the same as them 3 states away. And then when they go out and they do real well, then everybody asks, well, hey, did we ever recruit so-and-so?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The Felder situation really hurt him because he would have been that true point guard for those next couple of teams, and getting into trouble and seeing him have to leave the program, that was a major setback for them. You're right, because Felder was nothing but a point guard because he wasn't a shooter, but he could direct the offense, and he was physical enough where he could stand up to the opponent's point guard and not be run over. He could make an offense from the top, kind of move in a different direction because he could physically stand up to the opponent's point guard. So losing him was a big blow.
Yeah.
And they
so
gave him every opportunity. If I remember correctly, they gave him every
Oh,
opportunity
yeah.
to get straightened out.
It's not the only thing you can say that can kind of be probably Frank's, I don't know if it's his fault, but you kind of scratch your head about is that Frank, in those first couple of years, he kept on getting guys that got into trouble. Remember the BB gun incident and all that other stuff? Because he still had the kid from Keenan who was a pure point guard also, and he left. And it's almost like Frank didn't keep up with him enough. He didn't know him well enough off the court to keep up with him. Because if you think about it now, if you look over across the way with the girls team, Coach Staley never has basically had any discipline problems with her girls. But before she got there, one of the things that got the coach in trouble before her, Walvius, was she had the 3 or 4 girls she brought in that were going through kids' rooms and dorms and stealing their cards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you got to phone somehow, because somehow he didn't, his first couple of years, he just had kids going in and out. The team never had like a core of 8 or 9 people who stayed from year to year.
You're right. They had a lot of turnover during a couple of year period there that really hurt them in recruiting. He was having to go back and re-recruit positions. Yeah, but he got that straightened out, and I think the characters he brought in over the last couple, 3 years were pretty good. They seemed to kind of toe the line. And, of course, he had mass transfers after last season, but he went out and replaced them in the transfer portal, John. And in some ways, he helped the team. In some ways, he missed on some guys as a result of that. All right, thank you for the phone call. Going to hit a break, come back. We do have recruiting. Nothing supersedes recruiting. Okay, we got to get the recruiting in. That's coming up, and then we'll finish up the calls here on Sports Talk.
Sports fans, are you in it to win it? Join South Carolina's fight against COVID-19 by getting your vaccine today. Vaccines are safe and will help stabilize school operations by bringing us back together safely. The CDC recommends everyone 5 years and older get vaccinated. Visit scdhec.gov/VaxLocator or call 866-365-8110 to find a vaccination station near you.
What does the 50th anniversary of Title IX mean? It means I'm valued, I'm empowered, I can do anything. It means I'll pave the way for every girl who plays high school sports in the future, just like every female student, coach, official, and administrator blaze the trail for me. Because every student deserves the opportunity to play. Encourage girls you know to participate in South Carolina high school sports.
This message presented by the SCHSL and the South Carolina Athletic Administrators Association.
We got something that was written today about some of the former Gamecocks, Darius Thornwell, P.J. Dozier, talking about exactly what we were talking about, not taking advantage in recruiting of that Final Four run.
Yeah, evidently, Sindarius Thornwell was on a podcast earlier today, Phil. And one thing I'm not sure we even thought about, I haven't looked far enough in. He was asked, all right, the common question is, why did Frank Martin not capitalize on the run to the Final Four? And Sindarius Thornwell said, quote, the number one thing was PJ. I think PJ leaving the same year I left hurt the program. I'm not saying PJ hurt us, this or that, but guys were like, who am I going to come here and play with now? Like PJ was, I'm not going to say he was supposed to, but he was supposed to when we left to carry the throne for another year or two so that he could get those other guys to come and play. And you start thinking about that, and Sindarius may be onto something. Imagine if Dozier had stayed the following year and you could start rebuilding around an NBA-type talent. Maybe we're not having this conversation.
Right, exactly. But, Dozier at that point, coming off the Final Four, in which he played well. He played very well in the Final Four. That was probably, in his mind, his time to cash in.
And probably so. I mean, he averaged 14 points and 5 boards that year. And, but if he comes back another season, does, go back to the Zion Williamson thing? How about Jalik Felton? I mean, there are a lot of guys in the state around that time that may have made other decisions if Carolina had not really lost. As you pointed out, the cupboard was pretty much bare after that run.
All right, let's now get to the recruiting report, shall we? Brought to you by Seawells. And coaches come and go. Sportscasters, they come and go. Seawells is always there. And the daily luncheon buffet will always be there for the rest of time. And you need to take advantage of that delicious daily luncheon buffet over at Seawells every day, 11 to 2. Pat, do we have the menu?
We do have the menu. And for tomorrow, Tuesday, March the 15th, we'll be bringing you carved black oak ham, southern fried chicken, and then hamburger steak with grilled onions. And I'm sure they'll have some gravy to slather on top of that. And don't forget, got salad if you want it, all the fixins, and dessert.
All right, let's now get to the recruiting report, shall we? Brought to you by Seawells. And coaches come and go. Sportscasters, they come and go. Seawells is always there. And the daily luncheon buffet will always be there for the rest of time. And you need to take advantage of that delicious daily luncheon buffet over at Seawells every day, 11 to 2. Pat, do we have the menu?
We do have the menu.
We have the menu.
And for tomorrow, Tuesday, March the 15th, we'll be bringing you carved black oak ham, southern fried chicken, and then hamburger steak with grilled onions. And I'm sure they'll have some gravy to slather on top of that. And don't forget, got salad if you want it, all the fixins, and dessert.
That sounds great. And for the very best in the catering business, of course, that's C. Wells. Their phone number, 803-771-7385. Online at cwellscateringsc.com. Clemson had a bunch of players in on Saturday. They offered 3. Linebacker Jamal Anderson of Houston, Georgia. Cornerback Brandon Strozier, Alpharetta, Georgia. 2024 linebacker Sammy Brown, Jefferson, Georgia. Jamal Anderson is the son of the former Falcons running back. Other visitors for Clemson, offensive tackle Marquis Anderson, linebacker Rico Walker, running back Jeremiah Cobb, linebacker Grant Godfrey, Christchurch receiver B.J. Atkins, Greenville offensive tackle Blake Franks, defensive tackle Samaj Turner, cornerback Daquan White. Those are 2023. 2024, quarterback Jaden Davis, Charlotte, receiver Mazio Bennett, Greenville, who will visit Georgia this Saturday. Offensive tackle Julius Tate of Greenville. In the 25 class, linebacker Jadon Perlow of Buford, Georgia. Back to 24, tight end Jack Larson of Charlotte. Offensive tackle Josiah Thompson of Dillon. Receiver Jordan Shipp of Charlotte. Offensive tackle Cam Pringle of Woodland. Athlete Joseph Stone Jr. of Loganville, Georgia. Receiver Alex Taylor of Greensboro. Receiver Debron Gatling of Milton, Georgia. Athlete KJ Bolden of Buford, Georgia. Cornerback Zion Ferguson of Loganville, Georgia. Tight end Kylan Fox of Loganville, Georgia. Offensive tackle Fletcher Westphal, Leesburg, Virginia, 6'8", 320. He's only going into the 11th grade. Offensive tackle Aiden Banfield, Houston, Georgia. 25 class offensive lineman, defensive end David Sanders Jr. of Charlotte. Offensive tackle Cortez Smith, Lilburn, Georgia. Offensive tackle Olaus Alinen, set to visit Clemson Wednesday, Georgia Thursday, USC next Monday. Also visiting Wake Forest this week. He's been to Southern Cal, Ohio State, Florida, and Alabama. He's taken a virtual visit with the Gamecocks as well. USC offered safety Winston Berglund, Carmel, Indiana. 2024 defensive end Sterling Dixon of Mobile, Alabama. Wide receiver Amari Borden, who was offered by USC late December, committed to Stanford. Receiver Devin Hyatt of Columbia and IMG Academy plans to visit USC early this week. I'm thinking maybe tomorrow for the first practice. Clemson and USC target tight end Reed McKeska was offered by Florida State. Clemson target linebacker Jamal Anderson, we mentioned, was offered by NC State. Clemson target quarterback Christopher Vizina was at Ohio State Thursday, was offered by the Buckeyes. USC target linebacker Jaden Robinson offered by Maryland. Clemson target receiver Noah Rogers offered by Auburn. Clemson USC target 24 quarterback Jaden Davis offered by Ole Miss. Clemson target defensive end A.J. Hoffler plans to visit Ohio State on the 26th. Clemson target Avion Terrell was to be at Auburn today. Safety R.J. Johnson plans to visit USC on the 26th. 2024 running back Cortez Lane of Camden plans to visit USC on the 26th. USC target 24 defensive tackle Heaven Brown Schuler will visit Oklahoma on the 26th. Clemson target offensive tackle Sam Pendleton was at Michigan over the weekend. Safety Landon Hale of Yulee, Florida plans to visit Clemson April 8th. You know what stud came out of Yulee, Florida?
Do not.
Derrick Henry.
Ah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry, Yulee, Florida. USC target JUCO defensive tackle Elijah Davis offered by Florida State. USC target receiver Paul Billups offered by Florida State. USC target tight end Mac Markway was at LSU over the weekend. Clemson target athlete Creed Whitmore was at Florida State Saturday. He was offered by Georgia Tech as well. South Florence quarterback Lenora Sellers committed to Syracuse. Dutch Fork running back Jarvis Green offered by UMass. Went to Miami of Ohio over the weekend, was offered by them. Buford defensive tackle Eamon Smalls offered by Eastern Michigan. Cornerback Brandon Cease of Lakewood offered by Morgan State. Athlete Myson Kelly of Daniel was at Georgia Tech Saturday. 2024 receiver Mazio Bennett of Greenville offered by Penn State. 2024 Dillon offensive tackle Josiah Thompson offered by Florida State. 2024 offensive tackle Cam Pringle of Woodland offered by Michigan. 2024 quarterback Jaden Bradford of Chapin and IMG Academy, offered by Louisville. Chapin offensive tackle Chase Swigert will visit Auburn this coming weekend, then plans to decide on PWO offers from the Tigers, USC, and Penn State. Clemson target tight end Jack Larson, offered by Michigan. Camden defensive tackle Xavier McLeod, offered by Penn State. Defensive end Colton Vasic, 6'6", 230, Austin, Texas, visited Clemson today. Hilton Head Prep place kicker Trevor Weldon, committed to Miami. Coastal Carolina transfer defensive back Jordan Morris, committed to Sam Houston. Clemson offered offensive tackle Roderick Kern, Orange Park, Florida. Clemson in the top 10 with defensive tackle Hunter Osborne, along with Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Miami, Auburn, Southern Cal, and Oregon. 2024 safety Noah Dixon, LaGrange, Georgia, was at Clemson Saturday. Also at Clemson Saturday, 2024 place kicker Nolan Hauser of Cornelius, North Carolina. 2024 corner Caleb Beasley of Nashville plans to visit Clemson for the spring game. USC target running back Trayon Webb plans to visit tomorrow for the first spring practice. USC offered 2024 defensive end Jonathan Eccles of IMG Academy, and the Gamecocks offered 2025 safety Jovarius Lundy. And Jovarius Lundy is from Tampa, Florida. Funny, I was just there and I didn't see him. That'll do it for the recruiting report tonight here on Sports Talk. And, of course, the players that have signed with South Carolina, now they all have to kind of sit back and wait and see what happens with the program and as to whether or not they're going to honor their commitment to the Gamecocks. All right, back to your phone calls here for the final minutes. We go to Triple T in Columbia. He likes to be called the trash-talking Tiger. I call him something else, but I won't say that now because I think it's viewed in a negative way. But trash-talking Tiger is viewed in a positive way. Triple T, it's an honor. It's an honor to have you back on Sports Talk. An honor.
Phil.
Triple T.
Phil.
Triple T.
Yes, can you hear me?
Hang on a second. Yeah, we got you.
I'm going to say one name. BJ Mackey for the job. Ray Tanner should jump on the phone right now, like my coach always say. Right now, RAT. Bring BJ Mackey in. Let him bring in either JoJo English, Melvin Watson, or Larry Davis, assistant coach. That's it. If you can give Shane Beamer a head coaching job without any defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator job, you can give it to BJ Mackey. He got the experience. He's been at Charleston Southern. He's been at East Tennessee State and Wake Forest. That's the man. You're not going to get nobody else coming here. So Carolina, BJ Mackey can get all the kids from San State. The last thing I'm going to tell you about Jai. Jai wanted to come here. Friend of mine is a good friend of the grandfather. The grandfather brought Jai here, Morant here, to talk to Frank about coming as a walk-on. Frank told him, said, I got my point guard. You have to sit on the bench. Mm-hmm. That's when he went to Murray State. That's the deal. He told him he had to sit on the bench because he already had his point guard. So a lot of folks don't know. BJ can get the kid from Ridgeview and GG. I'm telling you. But, y'all want to go out and, try to get a big name. You're not going to get no big name. So like I'm saying is, BJ is the man. BJ is the man.
You know what, Triple T? You now got me convinced. That idea kind of sounds exciting. Now, could you get Larry Davis and Melvin Watson and JoJo to join him as assistant coaches?
That's right. Bring them in, and they can recruit. They understand the kids of the day. That's all I got to say, man.
I'm going to back up and say that's a decent idea. I'm not, and you know what? I'm going to go back and say that he wouldn't hire an assistant coach. Certainly, based on what he did with football. And thank you, Triple T, Chris. Based on what and Triple T makes a great point. We kind of glossed over it earlier.
Yep.
He did hire an assistant to be the head football coach. If you're going to do that, why couldn't you do it for basketball if you get the right guy?
And you've got an alumnus who has done a nice job as an assistant on one of the resurgent programs in the ACC in Wake Forest. as he laid it out, it started making a whole lot more sense, especially if you're going to bring in fellow alums to the program. Does that work? I don't know, but it's certainly something maybe Ray Tanner should at least consider. At this point in time, you should look at all the options available to you. That'll be interesting, though. BJ,
then, though, you know,
with JoJo English.
Would those guys put their egos, you know, because they had to fight. Remember, BJ, he came in all cocky and everything as a freshman at South Carolina, and there were stories of flare-ups in the locker room with him, with the older guys, because he was the young freshman hotshot, but he wouldn't back down to anybody. Of course, now they're older and, you know, they're grown men now, and things are a little different. But,
and add Carlos Powell to that staff, too. He just
Powell.
won a state championship here at Wilson.
Would they dare do that? Would they dare
great
think
question.
That's an interesting point. Thank you for that, Triple T. Chris enjoyed it. Pat enjoyed
Yes, sir.
it. Thank you, everybody. We're out of time. We'll pick it up tomorrow night. See you then.